Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Maya, and here we are to resume our first classes in this behavioral economics course. All right, this is the behavioral economics of global affairs, and we are here at UFRPE, still adjusting for the pandemic and all of that. But let's go back and have a look again at what we discussed as being the bounded rationality theory. Okay, so we understand that conventional economics adopt certain assumptions about individual behavior which are very common, mostly used in different social sciences, like, for example, in business administration. They all assume that individuals are rational, uh, pure rationality, let's say, and so they try to reach the best for them, the best level of satisfaction, the highest profit possible, and so on. It turns out that when we inspect, we study the actual behavior of people, we see that we are not so rational like that. And this has been a long discussion about what is rationality. But most recently, let's say starting from the 50s, last century, 1947 or something like that, Herbert Simon published this book about rationality. And his concern was mostly directed to business and companies, how they are run, how management works, and how those things are affected by this bounded rationality. Uh, Starting from there, we have like a number of other authors and researchers who dedicated their lives, their works to study the impacts of different assumptions on how people behave, right? Okay, Herbert Simon, let me say a couple of words about this guy. He's one of those extremely talented guys who could excel in different areas. He was not only a very good mathematician, he basically knew like a whole encyclopedia of knowledge in different sciences. So he was like an admired fellow. And let's discuss a little bit some of the points in his work, okay? So the main message here is that our minds must be understood from the perspective of the context in which it was developed. We are talking about the African savanna, a savanna africana. It was there we spent the last 300,000 years as a species. Como uma espécie, a gente passou 300 mil anos se desenvolvendo ali na savana africana. Naquele contexto, nossa mente foi desenvolvida. In that context, our minds were developed, right? So we end up noticing many of what could seem like flaws in everyday life decisions. But when we look at those anomalies and we put those in perspective of someone living in an African savanna, then we can understand why our minds behave the way they behave, the way they do. Okay? So, this is the main message. But what we realized after we study, investigate, and sometimes experiment with human behavior is that decisions are very often not optimal. We have restrictions on how much information we can process, and we have limitations in the amount of knowledge that we acquire, and sometimes we don't have time enough to process that information. So we end up making decisions that are a little bit distant from the optimal ones. Okay, so we're going to understand that And following what became a tradition initiated by Herbert Simon, but followed also by Tversky and Kahneman, we're going to study the heuristics. If we translated that to Portuguese, would be heurísticas. But nobody knows what heurísticas are. So the actual Portuguese word for that is regras de bolso, regrinhas de bolso, soluções rápidas, soluções aproximadas, atalhos mentais. And we will also discuss biases, vieses, cognitive biases. This was a whole research program initiated by the 50s, but mostly accelerated in the 70s last century, right? So they started creating methodological contributions, contribuições metodológicas on how to propose experiments that would eventually prove some of those points, okay? The anecdotal knowledge was not enough. O conhecimento anedótico da simples observação no dia a dia não era suficiente. We needed experiments. And in order to prepare, design experiments, we first have to be very careful, and we also have to be very ethical, have to be worried about causing no harm to someone who is participating in an experiment, right? Okay, so this thing started collecting anomalies, evidences, I don't know, evidences of human decisions being non-optimal or suboptimal. And if we bring those knowledges to everyday life or to nowadays, today, we still face big questions uh, for which our minds are not entirely prepared. Okay, so we are not entirely prepared as a human species. We're not entirely prepared to deal with problems like global warming, which is a global problem, right? The behavior economics of global issues, of global affairs, but sometimes to phenomena pretty close to our daily lives, like smoking. What is the common point between global warming and smoking? I don't think we are going to have the world becoming warmer just because people are smoking. No, no, that's not the point. Tanto no aquecimento global como no hábito de fumar, nos dois casos nós temos dificuldade de tomar a decisão certa, porque as consequências dos nossos atos só vêm depois. Both in the case of global warming, which is a collective problem, a global issue, and in the case of smoking, the habit of smoking, both we observe that the right decision many times is not made because we basically don't see the consequences of our choices immediately. If you smoke, you may continue smoking for a long time before you develop some sort of lung disease. And the same thing seems to happen with global warming. People don't see the consequences of releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the consequences will only come up 20, 30, 40, even 50 years from now. So it's hard to mobilize and to convince people to engage right now in preventing this unfavorable outcome, right? So the point here is that the psychology of Homo economicus, psicologia do homem econômico, which supposedly was a rational and selfish behavior with relatively stable preferences, this assumption has been challenged. A hipótese de que o ser humano é egoísta, racional e com preferências estáveis, essa hipótese não parece ser, ela parece estar sendo desafiada. All right, so what we can see, either by experimentation or in everyday life, we can see that behavior varies in different contexts and being in, uh, somehow subject to the effect of cognitive biases, emotions, social influences. All of those seems to have an effect in how we make decisions, right? The point is that we would like to believe that our decision process is deliberative, it's linear, is a controlled process. But actually, many times this thing doesn't happen, right? Okay, so please be aware that we are not saying people are incapable of making the right choices. That's not what we are saying. We are saying that we are not as good as some of our models have assumed, some of our theories have assumed, okay? All right, so talking about theories, we have to bring up here a theory of how the human mind behaves. And the first model we want to discuss is the one proposed by Kahneman and Tversky. So this is a model. What that means? O modelo não é a realidade, não é uma descrição da realidade. É uma simplificação da realidade para que ela seja mais facilmente compreendida. All right, so we're talking here about a model of mind, of human mind, okay? It's not the actual description of a human mind working, okay? So think this as a figurative way to understand the human mind processing information, right? So the model, the theory goes like this. Let's suppose that our brain has two different systems. The first system is a thinking process that is quite quick, intuitive, almost automatic, based on previous experiences, and sometimes even relatively unconscious, which means you can do things without even thinking, right? We still call it a thinking process, but sometimes we feel like we haven't exactly thought through all that decision, right? We act instinctively and sometimes automatically. Now, before I even talk about system 2, the second half of how our minds behave, let me go back and say that system 1, there is a reason why we have system 1, right? Sometimes we have to make decisions pretty quickly. Let's suppose that you are crossing the street and then you hear a loud noise. Well, the way you behave after that, like a car is approaching, I'm in danger, the way the human body, but mostly the human mind, behaves after that or at that moment, it is very particularly directly associated with system 1. We have to react fast, sometimes intuitively, sometimes automatically. We run, we jump, we try to escape some sort of danger. All right? So this is basically one example of system 1 in operation. Now let's talk about system 2. System 2, when you stop and think about a problem. So it's like when you're trying to solve this mathematical problem, or if you are playing chess, você está jogando xadrez com alguém. Você tem que parar, pensar, de preferência num ambiente de silêncio. So you actually take the steps to make decisions. You think all possible consequences, you evaluate them, and you make a choice. All right, not many times we use system 2. There are many situations we just react. So if you go to a self-service restaurant and someone asks you what you're going to have, sometimes your response right? Your answer to that question will be so automatic that you don't even think about it. You say, "Oh, I'm gonna have shrimp. Oh, I'm gonna have the pasta. I'm gonna have this and that." Sometimes it's just like a habit. You People ask you what you're gonna eat, and you say exactly the same things you always have at that particular restaurant, right? So sometimes you react, and we don't actually stop and think, okay, today's Monday. I could have something lighter. Let me see. No, we don't ever. Many times we don't think like that. We just react instinctively and sometimes automatically, right? So system one is the quick response. System two, when you stop and actually deliberately think about all the possibilities and before making a decision, right? Again, this thing is a theory. It is not supposed to reveal all the complexity of the human brain in operation. Okay, it's just to simplify and sometimes help us understanding. Now, let me give you an example uh, so that we don't keep just talking about abstract concepts. Let's have a look at this very common circumstance. So you are searching for a refrigerator. You need to buy a new refrigerator. So check this first one, the left-hand side image here. Notice what you have. You have the picture of the refrigerator, and you say you can purchase this in 8 installments of 129 bucks, right? So the actual price of the refrigerator is written in small letters. If you approach the screen, you're going to see 750 reais, 750 reais. But they highlight 8 times 129. Now, when they do this, they want to highlight, they want to give salience to the information that you are only gonna pay 129 reais a month. Okay, so this is trying to give you the sensation that you can, yeah, I can afford that. 129 out of my monthly budget. Yeah, I think I can make it. Yeah, let me purchase that. So the first case here, you're trying to give a stimulus in order to uh, ignite your system one decision making. So you're gonna make this. Yeah, that's good. I like the refrigerator and 129 bucks. You don't stop and think, wait, 8 times 129, this is gonna be like more than 1,000. So this is a lot of money. Uh, this is not exactly 750, which is what I would pay if I had just the money to pay entirely for the purchase, right? So you don't think, you just react and you try to help people making the choice that you want. So pay attention to this example, okay, guys? This is what marketing does many, many times. They want to take the best of you. So they want to go ahead and, I don't know, manipulate your decision, okay? Persuade you to make a decision even though you may regret it later, okay? They don't care about your regret. They say, as long as you purchase, we are making money, right? Now check the right-hand side picture. Here we have also this this illustration, this color scheme to help you make a good decision. So in this case, it's quite the opposite. Notice, if I were to tell you how much electricity the refrigerator spends in a day or in a week, in a month, that information may be hard to process. You don't know what is 30 kilowatts or 100 kilowatts. You don't know how that translates into money. So what they give you here is like a scale of more efficient, letter A, B, C, and less efficient, letters E, F, and G, with the red color at the bottom and the green color at the top. Okay, so what we're doing here is trying to give you information so you actually make a wise choice. We're still trying to help you and somehow uh, participate or ignite system one, right? This is, again, is trying to help you make a quick decision. But in this case, what we are trying to do is to help you to help yourself, right? In the first case, we want you to help us. Just buy the refrigerator and we're going to make money. That's what mattered to us. In the second case, what we're saying is, look, I can help you make a wise choice, a choice that you will feel good about later on, right? Okay, so uh, again, system one is the home of heuristics, as regrinhas de bolso, os atalhos mentais, and that we apply. And this is also the place or the mode responsible for biases. And biases here we mean predictable systematic mistakes. Okay, we may be left with when we make the decision. So if we make decisions using system one, we are many times susceptible to end up making poor choices because of cognitive shortcuts that we take or because of actual mistakes, all right? Uh, and there are many examples of this. One of them that is quite interesting is what we call anchoring effect, efeito ancoragem. So if we are discussing numbers, just numbers, like say 50 times, I've been to the store 50 times, I don't know, my dad is 50 years old or things like that. Just because I'm mentioning the number 50, later on, if I expose you to a set of choices and say, which wine you prefer to buy? Do you think this bottle of wine, is more or less expensive than 30 reais or something like that? So, se eu exponho um número absolutamente fora de contexto para você, só de mencionar o número 50 e depois, em seguida, eu peço para você estimar o preço de uma garrafa de vinho, você pode usar aquele número só porque você foi há poucos minutos atrás exposto a ele. So we call this anchoring. I mean, this is clearly not a rational decision, but it does happen. So when you're walking the aisle in the supermarket and we're checking out the prices of goods, of bread, of beverage, of rice, beans, whatever, as you are being exposed to different numbers, those numbers are not neutral. They end up having some effect on the way you estimate prices of stuff. So again, this is not exactly a rational behavior, but it happens. The other example related to anchoring is availability effect. So things that we have discussed shortly before tend to come up to our minds more easily when you have to, I don't know, make a decision or to propose, to make a suggestion or things like that. We are also affected by feelings. So if we have good or bad feelings about a color, about a picture, those will impact our decisions, right? That's why many times we see the brands of some sort of product, they always try to appeal to you for something that is natural, or something that is related to our childhood. So those images, they help you feel good about purchasing some good or some sort of product, right? So we have to pay attention to this and understand those trends in how the human mind works if you want to prepare people to make better choice. And sometimes if we want to help them out, help them make better choices for themselves, right? Okay, a quick summary here of what we have. System 1 is actually on the right hand side here. System 1 is automatic. I'm sorry. Yeah, system 1 is automatic, uncontrolled, effortless. You don't have to make a lot of effort to perform that decision. Many times is emotional, emotional decisions, decisions filled with emotions or um, ignited or somehow induced by emotions. It is fast and sometimes it is actually unconscious. So an example, a classical example of system one working is when you speak your native language. Se eu falo português, eu não preciso pensar para falar, ou pelo menos eu não preciso pensar muito. Não preciso parar e articular as palavras de modo que fique coerente. But when I speak in English, it is harder, right? Sometimes I have to stop and say, yeah, what I mean is, you know, so it's our time, our way to gain time, to have some more time to make choices of words. What exactly I want to say. So it's more like a deliberate effort. So we move to the other side. This is system two. If you speak a foreign language, you have to think. And for example, I'm recording this class right now, but if I were to spend 2 hours speaking in English non-stop, it is very likely that at the end I would be exhausted. I would be really tired, right? Because I have to think, I have to search for expressions that are deep down my mind. And sometimes it's hard to do so, right? So, speaking your mother tongue, your native language, it's automatically. Speaking foreign language like English, Spanish, or French, then you have to stop and think and you have to use lots and lots of more of your skills and memory uh, in order to process your your speech and eventually articulate it in a proper way. Okay. All right, so other examples, if you just go to your school or your work, you are driving, you don't stop and think about which way to go. It's natural. You remember easily. If you like some food and somebody offers you, hey, would you like some cake? Hey, would you like an apple? You don't have to stop and think, do I like apples? Well, no, you don't do that, right? You just say yes or no if you feel like it, right? So automatic decisions or very quick decisions, system one. And system two is when you stop and you say, wait, that cake looks delicious, but it probably has like 1,000 calories. And I'm trying to watch my figure here. My belly is kind of growing with this pandemic. So I have to watch out. I'm trying to be fit. I'm trying to diet. You have to actually use your brain, use your mind in a more deliberate, effortful, uh, and slow way, right? So the name of the book that actually became famous, written by Kahneman, was Fast and Slow, Rápido e Devagar. So this was the name of the book in which these guys proposed this analysis, right? Now, before I finish here and I let you guys go, let me talk a little bit more about a few more examples of about system one at work. The most obvious one is salience, which means when you highlight something in order to make that information standing out or seem great, seem an opportunity, that obviously will affect our decisions. And we do that all the time, right? Sometimes the way we dress, sometimes the way we write, when you choose the correct words, if you're sending a message, if you're trying to get a job, if you're participating in a job interview, there will be some words that you want to uh, highlight, you want to emphasize in order to convince people of an important message, right? So salience is all over the way we look, the way we speak, the way we act, right? Uh, there's also this heuristics and bias that may end up resulting from system one. And it turns out that sometimes system one can only indirectly be observed as we see people remaining the same. If you make a choice and you stick to that choice for a long time, that may be actually the work of system one. I gave you here the example when you go to a restaurant and the guy or the lady asks you what you're gonna have. And you say, I'm gonna have pasta. And that's it. Vou comer macarrão. Eu quero macarrão. Não, eu quero bife à milanesa. You don't stop and think for a while about what you like, what you don't like, and things like that. So sometimes we just make decisions like this, and we repeat those decisions for a long period of time. Many times it happens. So system one, it is actually a fast decision making process, but sometimes it can also be associated to remaining the same. You don't want to rethink something and you just access what was your last choice and you repeat it, right? Changing sometimes may be not comfortable for people. You know, when you try something different, when things around you have been changed, you feel like out of place. You don't know exactly how good or bad that new situation is, right? So system one is also associated with that. There are two other examples, very interesting, that I wanted to mention right from these first weeks of class, right? First one is present bias. So what we are saying here is that present events, situations, decisions, or choices, they are weighted more heavily than future ones. If I ask you, what do you prefer? I give you 100 reais right now, or I will give you 105 reais a couple of months from now when we finish this class. Say, oh, come on, 5% for just 2 months. Yeah, that's a pretty good rate of return. But still, some people say, no, I preferred it right now. So what we actually see is that many times we make choices and we prefer some outcome immediately, and we don't want to wait long before we get our reward, our money, or things like that. The other example is planning fallacy. So, falácia do planejamento. First one, present bias, viés do presente. The second one, planning fallacy, falácia do planejamento. In this second one, we can see that many times that people they are supposed to make some decision, and that decision will only have consequences in time. But we fail to plan how much time we will need to achieve some sort of goal. So let's suppose that you guys have an assignment. You have to, I don't know, go over some exercises, and I ask you in this class to take a test. But if I tell you, look, you're only going to need to submit your answers on Sunday, right? Domingo é que vocês têm que entregar o teste, vamos supor, por exemplo. And then you can immediately say, all right, so if I only need to submit the answers on Sunday, I will have a look at this test by Friday. And then when Friday comes, you say, you know what, I'm going to look at it during the weekend. And then Saturday comes and it's, I don't know, Saturday afternoon, and you're like, I'll have a look at that tomorrow. So when Sunday comes and you look at the exercise, you say, wow, those are 50 questions. I mean, it's not like that in this class. Não é assim nessa turma, nessa disciplina, tá? Mas isso pode acontecer. So you end up planning poorly. Você não planeja muito bem the use of time if it is in the future. Now, these things are not important, are not only important for the case of homework and study assignments, but it's also very important on the way with regard to the way we make choices for our retirement, right? At some point in life, we are all going to be too old to work. And even if we can work, we wouldn't want to work. So we have to save money. But it is very common that people will live until they are 45, 50, sometimes even 60 years old before they realize that they haven't saved enough. They haven't saved enough money to live after that, after they stop working. So we plan poorly. We don't plan ahead how long it will take to gather enough money so that you're going to have a stable, comfortable life after you stop working. So this is a huge deal. And in a way, it is also an important deal, the way we deal with sustainability. Okay? All right. So in the same kind of exercise we are thinking here, we can also consider that phenomenon like dishonesty, desonestidade. Sometimes it is not only the calculus, the decision of someone that is rational and opportunistic. Dishonesty many times involve situations, contexts that somehow change our minds or facilitate some specific choices, and then we can have also some sort of self-deception. Sometimes we can do things that later we will analyze and understand that those were mistakes. But when we are making those choices, sometimes we delude ourselves. We have this self-deception, and we say, no, it's okay, it's not a big deal, and then sometimes we behave unethically. We're going to talk about that too, okay? So there are many, many interesting examples and situations we want to evaluate, first from this individual perspective, and later on we're going to talk about group behavior, like organizational behavior, when you are a member of a club, a member of an organization like a company or an association. And at the last stage, we're going to talk about social behavior, right? When we are talking about the collective choices of whole communities and populations, all right? Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I want you guys to have a look at pages 39 to 53 in this guide to behavior economics. You can access that in Portuguese, remember, Guia de Economia Comportamental. So you can have a look at this book also in Portuguese, but it is also available in English. You just need to search from your browser. You can search for Guide to Behavioral Economics, okay? And I would also suggest two quick videos. They are like short videos, 15 minutes, something like that. First one is Dan Ariely. This is one of the most important behavior economists of our time. He's been famous, and I don't know, maybe not far from now, this guy can also get a Nobel Prize for his contributions in behavior economics and economics in general. And Esther Duflo, well, this is actually the former Nobel Prize winner in economics. So last year, Esther, who is a French lady living in the US for many, many years and working at MIT, she has dedicated her career to study how we can help out poor communities making better choices. And this is also a very interesting video, all right? You can find those either at YouTube or in TED, which is a platform of short videos, short presentations. In this second case, at TED.com, you can also find these videos with subtitles in Portuguese. Okay? All right, so this is it for now. I hope you guys have the chance to watch this video and bring your questions, your suggestions, your comments to class. I'll see you all on Friday. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.